Alright, hello everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to this stream. Today I'm going to be working on the Melodist and getting the build that I'm currently working on ready to sort of send to people who are doing assets for the game. So I've been working on some features recently that have been like, hot reloading stuff at runtime and stuff, so that making art and making assets for the game is as easy as possible. And I really want to get the build in a good state just to make the artists as comfortable as they can be, so that the assets turn out the best. So that's the plan for today. If I go ahead and build the game, I can jump into the editor here. And, the first thing that I kind of want to address is just having a better selection screen for, basically subtypes of entities. You can see that this list has gotten super long here, and that's not good, because you want to be able to add more and still be able to see it. So that's definitely not good. So we want to be able to just basically scroll through these, or maybe have a text box where you can search or something like this. Probably start with maybe just a page or scroll system. Pages are probably the easiest to do, and they're also kind of nice in a lot of ways. Yeah, I kind of like pages better, just because you can know that something's on page 2 or something like this. It's not some complicated ordeal, and it's it's much more straightforward to implement. So I'll go ahead and get to work on that. Jump into the UI code here. What I should do, I'm gonna have to use it in multiple places, so it would be nice if I sort of just had a nice function for it. So we'll go ahead and write one. UI editor, let's see. UI editor page selection, or selector, I guess. Let's see. Should take pointer to the UI struct. I guess we'll go ahead and see. It's going to need an ID. I would sort of like to have explicit control over the IDs passed in for the left and right buttons for the page selection. So I'll go ahead and pass in both of those, left ID, right ID. And I guess we'll, this should return the current page index, and we'll pass that in as well, page index, and then we'll say max page index. So to call this thing, you would basically do like, I want this, and I'd say page index equals this, pass in the UI, and then UI ID. We can just actually put it on separate lines, and that way the IDs are guaranteed to be unique. So we pass in the left and right ID, the page index currently, and then the max page index, which would be some variable that we know about. And that's sort of the API that I would like to call. So for example, when I'm dealing with that, that page selection, or the type selection sort of widget for the static objects, for instance, this is sort of where that's happening. So, I find out how many types there are, the size per type, and then I find out the name offset within the type structs, and I effectively loop through all of the different types and, generate a toggler for each particular type. And that's fine, but as I already showed, that tends to become a problem. So what we would like to do instead is sort of have a notion of the current page that's being looked at. And we actually have some memory for this. So within the, let's see what we got here. Here we go. So we have this entity editor memory and entity editor memory alloc position. So we can actually allocate from this entity editor memory, and it does it every frame, but it's fine because it's, it's not allocating from the operating system or anything like that. It's just a block of memory, and then it just sort of iterates through the different fields of the entity that we want to edit, and then allocates as it needs to. So if it does that every frame, it's perfectly fine. So for example, for the type selection, we want to have some sort of a type index. So what we should do is allocate from that entity editor memory, which, let me put it over here. It's right here, entity editor memory. We would like to allocate from that. So let's go ahead and say, page index equals, we'll dereference a pointer to the current entity editor memory at the alloc position. So entity editor memory plus entity editor memory alloc position. And then we want to, since we're sort of allocating from it, we want to move that sort of arena allocator position forward by a little bit. So entity editor memory position will just increment by size of I32. And then we get the page index, and that's good. Now the page index presumably should start at 0, and all the entity memory should be zeroed every time an entity editor is opened. We'll find out pretty quick if it's not. So we have the page index in this type selection. Now what we'd like to do is sort of figure out which widgets are on which page. Now that brings up a decision. We know how big the buttons are, and we know how much space we'd like, how much space we have for the menu in general, but the question is, how many buttons do we want to display at a time, right? And we can sort of just tweak this. We'll go ahead and say the maximum, let's go ahead and say max buttons per page. This should be something like, probably like, I don't know, let's just say 5, right? Something like that. And then we'll say page button counter. Start that at 0. And so I guess what we'll think about here, first we'll do something like first type index. And this should be, the type count divided by max buttons per page. So let's see here. And we'll want to multiply that by the page index, I think. Let me think about this for a second. Well, the first type index should just be, the page index times the max buttons per page, and then we'll sort of make sure that that's in bounds of all the types possible. Let me make that a U32, and we'll just say first type index is less than type count. And actually, we want to flip that. So if it's greater than or equal to type count, we're in trouble. So we'll just say first type index equals first type index equals the, so I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I like having, well, that's gonna have to happen. Okay, so the first type index equals first type index minus max buttons per page, maybe. Although that's not really correct to me. I don't know how to pronounce your name, I'm sorry. Zyku0 maybe? For each in C++, is that a macro? Yes, that is a macro. I have like a language layer file where I just define a ton of stuff. You can see like 1100 lines of just stuff that should be in C and C++ but isn't. So for each, like, this isn't what you'd want to do for a for each, but it basically just loops through some limit. It's just an easy way for me to specify that. Again, not really what for each is in other languages, but, you know, I don't really care. I just have gotten used to it. It's convenient to type. So, you know, I have array count, local functions, you know, lots of stuff like that. So, well, I guess what we would say is that the page index should never, if we guarantee that the page index is correct and that it doesn't produce first type indices that are out of bounds, then we should actually be fine. So I guess we don't need to check that at all, but we'll do something like, I mean, we have the page index and we have the max buttons per page, the page button counter. I don't know if we need this actually. So we can actually just do something like, okay, for u32i equals first type index. We'll go and try that. And then we need to ensure that this is less than type count and it's less than first type index plus max buttons per page, right? Because we want to just constrain it to, you know, not only we don't want it to go off the end if the type count is not divisible by max buttons per page, but we also just want to make sure that we only show 5 buttons at a time for each type. So, and then we just increment. Now I think we're going to run into a problem here, because we didn't expect to be able to loop just arbitrarily into this type array, this entity type array. So we're going to have to actually move the pointer forward some amount. So we have some first type index. We'll just want to say, you know, type name memory. We'll want to add first type index times size per type. That should be fine. And, you know, field memory should be this. No, field memory is the same. So that's actually just all we need to do there. Is there, like, not totally sure why forcoder isn't kind of putting that in the right spot. Couldn't really tell you, but either way. I thought it used to, but maybe I'm wrong. Either way, so we have a toggler, we have a, you know, the type name that we care about, we pass that into the toggler, and, you know, if that toggler is selected, we copy that to the field memory, ensure it's 0 terminated, and if it's not the current type, you know, we update, yeah, if it's not the current type, we update the render, the entity render. Right there. So that should be good. Type name memory plus equals times per type. That's correct. So that's pretty good. But now we need to actually make that call to the page index, and then we need to replace the page index data inside the actual entity editor memory, because that is the state that persists between frames. So we can actually just reset that by saying entity editor memory equals page index, and that's good. So that should be fine. What I would like to do, just to make this explicitly correct, is do that. Actually, we'll do I plus that, because this is in a loop looping through the fields of an entity. So that should be good. The page index, the max page index, we need to find out what the max page index is. So the max page index should be fairly straightforward to figure out. Max page index equals the type count divided by says IQ 0 is the language layer.h publicly available on GitHub or somewhere. It is not. It's just something I have in this project. I will probably put it out there at some point. But it's kind of more specific to this project right now. You can see I have a lot of vector stuff, a lot of, you know, overloaded operators for vector stuff for C++ programs. And the reason why I'm checking if it's C++ or not in this file particularly is because I also have a C program that is my pre-build step, which does some metaprogramming stuff, and that is written in C. So I wanted to just make sure I have, you know, this stuff. It's not perfect, you know. It's just sort of I throw stuff in here when I think it should be a part of, not even necessarily the language, just like, oh, I want this to be globally available to the program, you know, and it doesn't depend on like some specific thing in the program, like, you know, some string functions, all this stuff. So that's just sort of what that's for, but it's not publicly available, no. Max page index, type count. We want to divide by max buttons per page, right? And I think that's actually all we need to do, because we don't... yeah, I think that's correct, actually. That should be fine. To answer your question, AB109, etc. Language layer, it's just a file that I have that defines a bunch of stuff that I want to be globally available when I program, for this project at least. So we find the max page index, and then we do this thing. And I guess what we'll do is just say, okay, let's just assert that the page index is less than the max page index, because we don't want that to be false ever. So we can go ahead and do that, and that should actually do the job just fine once this is actually selected. But let's go ahead and compile. We might have left something out. Let's see, 268. What is this J thing that we're worrying about? Oh, this should not be I, this should be J. We're already using I. Let's see, 2d6. We have. I see. I can just do that. Okay, and then UI. Editor page selector. This does not return anything, so we'll just say return page index at the end. Most people would probably argue it's not idiomatic or something. Yeah, sure. I just write the code that helps me get stuff done. I don't pay too much attention to that. So I'm going to go ahead and write this UI editor page selector. Pretty much what we want to do. We want to eat a widget position. And we'd like to, so we have this XY width and height here. We'd like to sort of divide it up into two different buttons with maybe a label in the middle. So we'd like to sort of, yeah, I mean, the UI code isn't perfectly structured in that you can't like push auto layout things arbitrarily, so it doesn't have like a stack of these things or something, which is a little bit unfortunate. Looking back, I would probably have done that, but I don't really want to get into UI stuff right now. So, I don't know. I guess what I will say is, I mean, we have this group data, which deals with auto layout stuff. What would be nice if I could just make a temporary copy of that and then restore it so that I can make like temporarily, like divide a widget basically up into multiple sub widgets sort of. That would be pretty nice. Because we have this union, we could literally do something like, oh, I don't know. I mean, these are what? 4, 8, 12, 16 bytes. I mean, we could just say like group memory or group data memory. We'll just say like, oh, I don't know, 256 bytes or something. And that should be fine. And we'll basically just say, well, let's add a note here. Ensure that this is greater than or equal to the entire size of the group data. Is there a way to, yeah, that's probably the best way I can do that. Probably not, to be honest. You could probably find a cleaner way to sort of specify this, but whatever. That's probably fine. So we get a widget position, and we'd like to sort of push this group data memory that we currently have. You know, that's not super duper straightforward because we need to copy this as well. You know, maybe it is just pretty much best to sort of move this into like a stack situation. Do I really want to get into that right now, though? You know, I guess that's probably fine, actually. So let me get rid of this. And we say UI group data group mode, and then we'll just have a union in here. You can actually just directly copy this stuff. Okay. So this group count, let's go ahead and see UI column. Oh, I see. Okay, that's totally fine. Android U, random question. How long did it take me to get productive in 4Coder? I want to switch to it also, and I'm just curious. So 4Coder, I always shout it out on my streams. It's awesome editor. Literally, I sat down with the shortcuts for like an hour, and I was good to go. Like, I was already pretty productive. And I mean, obviously, I've gotten better over time. But I mean, yeah, I sat down and tried the demo for like an hour, which is free, by the way. You can find it on the itch.io page. And yeah, it was great. I sat down for like an hour, and I used Vim before it, so you know, it's different editing paradigm and everything like that. And it was perfect. You know, it was really good. So it was super quick to get used to. So for the group data, we want, you know, we want to be able to push stuff. Group stack. UI group stack max. We'll go and define this somewhere. I don't know. I mean, in reality, we probably don't need more than 8 or something like that, right? That's probably fine. And I guess we'll need some way to just say, like, okay, like group stack alloc position, or just group stack count, and then we can just have a pointer to the current group data, current group, and that should actually be okay. So let's go to the beginning of the frame in the UI code, and we'll just say, okay, well, we want to say group count is 0. We'll also say group stack count is 0. Actually, should just be 1, I guess. And we'll just say, well, no, that should be 0. We'll say the group stack, or actually the current group is 0. So it's like 0, your code looks like the famous C with classes. No offense, I like it too. Yeah, it's pretty much, it's really close to C. Like, for example, the things that wouldn't compile in C are like, oh, I don't type def these structs. I can't think, I guess the operator overloading wouldn't compile in C, but most of the code would compile as C probably correctly. Obviously, I don't know until I try it, but I'm not going to try it because there's really no point at this point. But yeah, it's I definitely like the more straightforward, just C style of writing code. Group stack count, current group 0, so that's like fine. And you know, when we get what we'll see here when I compile, we'll get a bunch of errors about like, oh, what the heck is column X, for example. Right here. What is column X? Who knows? And this is because we do not have yeah. The interesting thing is, like, do I want... No, I mean... I don't really care about the caller of the UI code having the ability to use the group stack, but maybe that's a good idea. Let's see here. No, I don't want to introduce like that complexity. I just want the ability to yeah, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. What I'm going to do, instead of having a stack that you can sort of push onto, I'm just gonna say like group data, right? And whenever I want to back up, all the group information, if I want to do like some subgroups basically within like just a single widget call, then I can actually just make a copy of the group data, and that'll be fine. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. Now I'm gonna get some more errors here. Let's see if I can group stack count. Yeah, just do nothing like that. Now column X. Okay, so we're gonna find all the places where I say, okay, UI column X. We're gonna say UI group data column X. Should do the same with column Y. So UI. Whoa! Did not mean to do that. Yeah. Yeah, that's not what I wanted to do. Yeah, I guess what I can do is actually just like UI column with UI group data dot column. Yes, I would like to do that. Yeah, that should be pretty good. Now, same thing for the rows, UI row. I guess also, I'm listening to some music here. I can actually play that on the stream. Hopefully that's not too loud. Let me know if that's too loud, people who are watching. I see some questions, I'll get there in a sec. So is this IQ 0, but do you use standard colon containers or instead do it the C-way, malloc, realloc? No, actually I do neither. All of the memory for the game is allocated up front. So there's just a single allocation. I mean, granted, there are more allocations later for stuff like assets, but the vast majority of the allocation happens win32 main.cpp. Yeah, happens right here. That is the bit too loud. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I can actually see that. There we go. That should be a little bit better. Let me know if there's any more problems with that. But back to your question. Yeah, I do neither. I don't use std colon containers, or I don't use malloc and realloc. I allocate pretty much all the memory right here up front. Like I said, there are some exceptions with asset loading, for example, but most of the memory, it's all done in the single virtual alloc call. And then that memory is just sort of partitioned out to different things. Santos, the slide driver, do I upload the stream somewhere? Yes, there's an archive page. You can find it linked from my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/delix. I can actually just throw that link I actually pronounce it Delix, but I've heard so many people call it Delix that, you know, it's just grown on me. Although I don't really have that as my username anymore, but needless to say, I don't mind it as much as I used to. So let's see what we got here. 830, we don't want group mode, we want that to be in the group data, so group mode, there we go, it still compiles. Come on, you have your own allocator? No, actually, I don't. I mean, I do have, like, little memory arenas, so you can actually see in the language layer file, I have this memory arena thing, where it's basically just a simple way of saying, like, oh, look, I just want this block of memory, but I just want to allocate whatever from it, and but it doesn't get freed, like, individual things within that arena don't get freed. It's just, like, an easy way to sort of partition out memory and stuff like that. There's no allocator stuff I'm doing. Like, it's just you allocate and you go, and that's it. It's like a super simple solution to the problem, you know. So I don't deal with freeing stuff at random times. It's just all allocated up front, and then it just runs. So there's no leak, because the only memory that pretty much, again, with a few exceptions, the only memory that gets allocated is freed at the end of the program, right? It's just one allocation, which is just a more reliable way to do things, because, I mean, every single allocation is a failure point, and, you know, you don't know if your code's correct if you don't check every single failure point, and that's just a lot of pain and suffering, you know, that's not necessary in a game, especially. So anyways, let's go ahead and see if this UI looks okay. Looks fine to me. I guess we'll go ahead and, yeah, looks alright. So there we go. We do only have 5 buttons displaying. We are going to have to get a page selection widget here, but we'll do that pretty easily. But, you know, we'll have to make the little composite widget in here, which should be doable now. Now that I have this group data all sort of wrapped up into a struct. So I'll say, you know, I'll just push it onto the stack, and I'll just say group data, last group data, sure, equals the UI's group data, and then we'll just, at the end, we'll just set it equal to the last group data. And the reason why I wanted to do that is so I could do something like this, where I can say, oh, well, now that I have this widget rectangle, I can actually just say UI row, and then I can make a little mini row, which is like a subgroup within this single UI call, and then I can put multiple buttons inside there, a label for maybe which page is selected, that sort of thing. Do I have an HTML layer for the UI, or is it pure C++? It's C++. I mean, it's more like sort of like what I said. It's closer to C. Like I get worried calling it C++ because then people see it and they're like, "What is this?" It's really closer to C, but it is C++. It's compiled to C++, so you can see, like, this is all the UI stuff. Like, here's the UI, and the rendering is all done with a custom renderer. Like, here's all the rendering stuff. You know, that's sort of how everything works. So I want to make a UI row in here. Let's go ahead and go into here. Let's look at what the row looks like. So we're gonna want to make a row. So we pass in the UI struct pointer, and we want to say it's at XY. The height is just whatever the height of the thing is. And we want 3 widgets, right? We want the left button, the right button, and the label in the middle telling which page, you know, which page is currently selected, right? So we want to do width divided by 3. Don't let Bjorn Strustrup see your code, man. I don't care what Bjorn Strustrup thinks. As long as the program works, and as long as I can modify the code easily and stuff like that, then I'm good to go. UI row. So we're gonna do like if button or UI editor button here. UI left ID. We do want the left ID in here. And we just need to pass in the string here. And we'll do the same thing for the right button. We'll just have this. And then we'll also just say UI editor label, which I think should just take the UI. Let's go ahead and double check. UI editor label. Yep, just the UI struct and some text. And we will just say page text or something like that, right? Page text 8. I'll do 6. I'll just do 32, right? Whatever. Page text, size of page text, and we'll just say like, oh, you're on page 1 or whatever out of whatever, right? And things we'll pass into there are just the page index and the max page index. Whoops, not page text, page index. And we want to subtract here, and then basically at the end of this widget call we'll just say, oh, if the page index is less than 0, then we'll say the page index equals the max page index minus 1. Else, if the page index is greater than or equal to the max page index, then we want to just set it to 0. So that's a pretty straightforward way of doing it. Max page index should never be 0, so that should be fine. If it is 0, there's something else wrong. Let's just assert really quick. So that just builds, and we are good to go. Let's go ahead and see what this thing looks like. There we go. So we have this nice little... now, that is a little confusing because you can see I have this little arrow pop up, right? When you mouse over a button in the editor, and that makes this pretty confusing. But you know, there we go. So that actually looks pretty good. I don't like how this is like 3 out of 4 is the max. Like I'll have to fix that. So we'll actually do like instead of page index, we'll just do page index plus 1. So static object. Here we go, and we can just actually go through the different pages, which is pretty darn nice. I don't know if it's seeing all of them. There are not only 2 rocks. That's nonsense. And also this can be there can definitely be more widgets per page. So you know, I can do this. That's all good. I mean, I'm pretty happy about that. I think I might just remove the arrow thing altogether. Like, I don't think it's actually that important. I just did it because I thought it looked nice. Lovely graphics. Is this game a platformer? Yeah, I can actually jump into the game right now. Let's load map. Map's a good map. Yeah, here's the game. I don't want to call it a platformer because it's not about platforming. It's about a game where music is intertwined with reality. So this is just a test little scene here. Don't mind that. There's some placeholder Vine art that I made in like 2 minutes. Yeah, you can see lots of stuff about it on the devlogs that I post on YouTube, all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, beautiful. Thank you very much. There's a secret vine there. Haven't added art for it yet. You know, perks of making the map, I guess. You know, that's all good. Anyways. Let's go back to the entities editor. X buttons per page, we can turn this up a little bit. Turn it up to 11, if you will. And we'll go ahead and see what we can do here. So, yeah, there we go. That looks a little bit better. Yeah, but it looks like we are missing the last page. We should actually have one more page. So I think max page index, this is wrong. Like, this should just be 1. Or plus 1, sorry. And I think that should be okay, but I guess we'll find out pretty quick if it's not. So static object, there we go. That's annoying how it kind of bumps around, but it's not big enough of a problem that I care. So yeah. Large pine tree, yep, that is definitely the last one. So that's all That's all good to go. Looks great. I'm terrified how many lines that must have been. It's not really that substantial of a program right now. I mean, I can even game source. Now this will look scary at first, but I have a disclaimer. So I don't know what takes clock so long, but either way, shows you, you know, something like 50,000 lines of code. Not that big of a program, but even then, this is also counting, for example, that's not that big of a file. That's counting this file, right, which is 12,000 lines. I guess, like, what are some other things in here that aren't mine? Source, ext, like STB image, for example, 7,000 lines right there. So I mean, let's do the math, right? Let's see how many lines of code are in the Melodist right now. We have. Let's just care about the code. We won't look at blank comments. So 43,287 minus. Let's see, source ext. 24,000. Now, granted, some of the things in X I did write, like these are my own single header libraries, but the vast majority of this stuff is not mine. So we have 24,000 lines of code that are not mine, effectively. Oh, whoops. Let's, how do I change? View. How do I change the result? Oh, result format. I want decimal. I want decimal. 19,000 lines of code. That's a really small program. You can write that pretty quickly, and you know. Granted, this project has been in development for a while, so you're probably like, what have you been doing? The answer is lots of other things are happening in my life, but, you know, that's the situation. It's not that many lines of code. Anyways, we will do... You know, I don't want to care about the little caret thing. I'll just say next. Next and last, that's fine. So static objects, last and next, yeah, that's perfect. Android U, is this a side project or am I working full-time? No, I would love to work on it full-time, but it is a side project. Oh, no worries. No, don't worry about interrupting. I'm just having a good time. I'm happy that I got this done so quickly, less than an hour. And that's including it, explaining things and everything, so I'm not in any rush. It is a side project. I'm a student, and you know, I work also. I'm not working right now, but yeah, that's the situation. So it is a side project, and I am not working full-time on it. So there we go. So that's all good. That actually makes me pretty happy with how well that turned out. I don't know what else to do at this point. Let's think about it. So we have this little type selector. This would be nice if it was centered, but I don't care that much. It's more. I mean, this is the editor, so I don't care. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. I think maybe I could just work on some maps now. I'm pretty happy that I got that done that quickly. You can see there's a bunch of unfinished stuff over here that I haven't really done anything with. So I guess I can, you know, while I think about stuff, I can sort of just work on this map, because that turned out to be pretty easy. So we'll just go to layer 2 here. I think, if I'm correct, yeah, okay, that's correct. There's a lot of improvements, little improvements that would be nice in the editor, but they're not big enough of a deal that I want to halt, like, making maps, for example. So, yeah, not a huge problem there. Let's go ahead and get this little edge thing. That looks better. Wanted to mention your language layer reminds of the C header-only library called gb.h. I'm curious to know if that's made by Ginger Bill, who's also on the Handmade Network, who's making Odin. Definitely sounds like it. I don't know. It makes sense to have like a little file like that for most people, I think, because it's just like, just regular C and C++ like does not have what you would want at all. Like there's so much stuff in that file that I'm just like, why is this not like just a part of the language, you know? Like local functions, for example. I mean, I have to do this nuts little syntax thing. Like I have to, in the C++ stuff of the language layer, it's like, yeah, I want to put a local function here. I have to hide like a struct in it and like put a member function in the struct and stuff, and it's like nuts. It's like, why can't we just have locally defined functions? Pretty ridiculous in my opinion. Layer 1, let's get rid of this stuff. So this is pretty good. I need a lot of Vine art and stuff. Like there's a lot of like spots where it's like, you know, there's some climbing tiles here. If I go into collision, you can see like there's some climbing tiles here that like I'm gonna have a vine here that the player can just very clearly see that they can climb up, but I don't have art for that yet, so I'm gonna have to get that at some point. But like, yeah, here's another example. Android U, it's okay, we'll have it in JI or Jai, I don't know. I ask how to pronounce that every time I talk about it. But yeah, I am super excited for Jai. Has so many things that I just want. So I'm crazy excited for Jai. It's gonna be really awesome. Yeah, like I don't know. With all the stuff that's happening in C++ right now, like C++ is just like, modern C++ is just not an option. Like it's just really bad. So I just have no interest in caring about it. So it's going to be good to just get on a new language. Fothsid, these levels look amazing. Thank you very much. I'm really glad you think that. It's been a long time coming since I can actually... it's been a long time coming, you know, to get to the point where I can make actual content, you know. So it's been good. You know, one thing, for example, like these are some janky little vines that I drew, you know, not final art. But, you know, if I come over here, you know what I do need to do? I'm making modifications to the map, and I need to make sure that that's not in the release version of the asset. So let's come into the map here. Let's get rid of all this. That should be fine now. So you can see, like, this vine appears, and that's like all good, but it's like totally in the wrong direction. Like you'd much rather it be like flipped. So, you know, I think it's good. In fact, I might even have an option for that right now. Like, let's see. Yeah, I literally have like flipped. Like that's a thing here. So that means it's being saved to the file. I'm just not actually doing anything about it. Like flipped is false here, for example. I guess that's the only collision reactors in the entire map. But you know, so these are flipped, and that's like being saved to disk. So we want to make sure that we care about what's happening there. So let's go to the static object.meta file, and we'll see. Do we read in flipped? Interesting. I guess we don't. So what are we reading in then? State editor, static object, position type layer. Wait, static object, what am I doing? Oh my goodness, collision reactor. Whoops. So we do actually read the flipped, which is good. Now what we should do here is just say, oh, well, you know, new sprite.direction equals, if it's flipped, then render, or actually left, otherwise right, I think is the correct thing. Seems to have built correctly. Let's go and see. There we go. So that's pretty good. So they're flipped. I mean, obviously you can see there's a gap here. You know, that's all stuff I'm going to address later when this art actually gets like done. So that's good. The thing is, there's so much C and C++ code that probably nothing, even Rust, will replace it for the next tens of years. Yeah, I mean, honestly, there is a lot of C and C++ code, but, you know, I will write a new engine in Jai. Like, I mean, after this project is done, obviously, I'm going to jump ship and go straight to Jai and write a brand new engine from scratch, because, like, look, things got to change. Like, that's just abundantly clear to me that things have to change. How am I doing the subpixel accuracy thing? It's like a sampling trick. GL shader. Let's see. Texture. So I have like a bilinear filter, and then I just sample at like a fractional offset so that I pick like sort of the correct color. So that's like this little trick. The person who showed me this trick is on Handmade Network. D7, you might know who he is. He has like a nice little demo of this trick. I would go there and ask people, because I don't know the link to get to that little demo thing, but it pretty much just displays this, and it makes for really nice effects. Like the fact that I can be like over here and just smoothly zoom in, and there's no like problems or anything. Like it doesn't look like it's shimmering anything like that. Like that's just really good. So that's like a really nice little trick. What song is this? I kind of like this song. Oh, I'm off my playlist now. That's not surprising, I guess. Let me pull up the chat again. Alright, so we have a little flipped thing. The thing, I might want some more capability within the editor, because if I go in the editor here, within the editor entity rendering specifically, so you can see particularly like right here, like this is not flipped, like this is just, it's not what it looks like. And that's because the entity editor code is not the same code as the game entity code, and it's for a pretty good reason, I found, but yeah, so like this should be just like, this should be flipped. Like I should have some ability to control whether this is flipped or not. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Instance render. So here we go. We have a source, a destination, a texture, a layer. What else would we like? A flipped. And then when we update a render, you know, we want to sort of just figure out if there's a field like flipped. And maybe that's all I need. Although I do need to, you know, actually render it properly. State editor, and then we'll see render map. What to render these entity instances. We want some flags here. Find out whether this thing should be flipped or not. And that should be okay. So let's go ahead and see what that's, see if that's going good. There we go. Right, so we can just actually, I don't know if it's, yeah, so it's just a matter of like when the thing is updated. That should just be updated right away, so I'll have to think about that a little bit. Don't want to interrupt you, but can you at least quickly summarize what features, C++ features you are using, obviously besides the C subset? Like, do you ever use templates in this code, any C++ specific headers? No. Not any C++ specific headers. The C++ features I am using are operator overloading, function overloading, and I don't type def my structs. Like, that's pretty much it. Everything else is just C, basically. Those are the 3 things. And also, I guess, local functions, which I generate. Like, those are just macros. Like, if I go to the language layer, like, begin local function, you can see I just have, like, this thing. So if I wanted to write, like, let's go scratch buffer, and I'll just say virtual white space. Whoa. Yeah, forkador has some bugs right now, but let me reopen that. I don't know why that bug has occurred. Let's see, language layer. Either way, you know, in a function, let's say we have like void, or just to, let's just put like something over here. So let's just say like, okay, like begin local function, or actually, we're inside a function, and we want a local function that can be called within this function, right? We don't want it to be an annoying thing that's everywhere, and we don't want to have to, you know, do a lot of things. Basically, this begin and end local function, it's just like, oh, let's see what we, like return type, like int, add a thing, and then we pass, or then we have the parameters like int x, int y, and then end local function. And then we just say, oh, return x plus y. And then whenever we want to call this thing, we can just do like local function add a thing. And then like 2 and 3, right? And this is like, just like, this is a lot friendlier than this struct crap, where you have to like make a local struct and have like a static function inside of it. And then like return, or yeah, it's just a lot better. And like even this syntax, as bad as it is, like is better than doing this. So that's an example of a C++ feature I use, I guess. I don't know what else is in here. If def, yeah, these if defs are all spread out because I wasn't trying to be clean at the time. Yeah, operator overloading. Yeah, function overloading, that's pretty much it. Yeah. Why not lambdas, though? I don't want to bother knowing the subtleties. I just want a function to call, I guess. So, I mean, you could use lambdas. I'm sure lots of people who have the same philosophy about this stuff do. I never bothered to learn them. I just did it that way because that's just how it first came to me, and that's just, I don't know, that's how I've done it. I'm sure you could find a similar effect of you know, using lambdas, but I never really like learned the syntax. Like, I know what they are, obviously. I probably tried them out like once, but the syntax didn't stick with me, so I just made that instead. No real good reason for me not using lambdas, I guess, that I can think of. I'm not super familiar with like what code is actually generated by lambdas, but yeah, I mean, what can I say? So, anyways, we have that little nice flipping thing in the editor going on now. So we can, whoops. So we can open up the map. Let's put the player spawn back where it should be. Player spawn right there. So we have this flip thing. There is a problem with collision reactors right now that I might want to start thinking about, which is like you can drag them around, but they're supposed to be tile locked. So you can see when I let go, they like snap to tiles, and that's like annoying. Like you want to just have it always snap to tiles. Similarly, it's kind of a similar issue, you know. When you click flipped, nothing happens, and you're like, what's going on here? And the reason why is because the entity render is not updated to sync up with the entity instance data right away, which it should be. So, yeah. So what can we do about that? Am I uploading these videos on YouTube? If not, I should. Yes, I am. I have some old streams. I don't know. I might make them unlisted or something because I was sort of trying to have a consistent format, and I didn't really like it. So I just wanted to sort of have like, streaming, whatever sort of thing going on, which is sort of what this is. So yeah, but you can find a link to that on my YouTube channel, just the Stream Archive channel, because I didn't want to sort of pollute my channel with a bunch of streams. So they're just there for people who want to watch the VODs. Found them, thanks, no problem. So this looks like, okay. What's going on here? Okay. So the first thing I want to do is like update the entity instance render when it needs to be. Like right now, like this does nothing, and it should, right? Like you should be able to see the changes like immediately. Now, like the easiest way to do that, which probably won't really matter, is like, let's just call the entity instance, or entity render, what was it called? Entity render, update entity render. I could just call that every time, every frame that the UI is open, you know? Why not, in fact? Let's try it out. If the performance doesn't, matter, then why in the world would we ever care? Let's go and see what that looks like. So we open this up, and that works. So that's pretty good. Now the next thing I sort of want to worry about is, like I want this to just snap to tiles all the time. Like I don't want to have to guess where this is going to snap to. That's kind of annoying. That's not a good way to, be able to make maps. I want to have a situation where, when I drag, it just snaps to the tiles always. So let's think about how that should be done. Let's see here. What's going on? Yeah, I guess we'll start back on the playlist. Entity dragging. So that's all good. So we have this update position function. Oh, I see. Mouse over entity rect is actually pointing to the destination rectangle of that thing. So, something that I could actually do that just came to me. If I store a little bit of state inside of the entity render about like whether this should be tile locked or not, I can just have it be a rendering issue, which is actually kind of convenient. So I'll just say like, oh, tile locked. and we'll say render tile locked equals 1. If there is an IV2, which is an integer 2D vector, and you know, if this is true too, then we probably just want to have tile locked be true there too. So tile locked, and then when we actually render these things, so entity instances, you know, we should basically just say like, oh, you know, is this tile locked? Whatever. And I guess we'll just say like, oh, like, okay, if this thing is tile locked, then we'll subtract the fmod of the render rectangle x and y by the tile size, so map tile size in pixels. And maybe that'll be okay. I guess we'll find out. So I guess we'll open up the map here. Whoa, yeah, that's not good. Although that is... So the rectangle also bothers me, but, you know, at least we have this sort of snapping around. Oh, I should probably do that pre-camera adjustment. I think the camera adjustment is screwing up there. Because order matters, I think, in this case. Let's see. Yeah, sure enough. We can actually just see that the render is handling everything pretty well. I don't like the rectangle not being synced perfectly with where the entity is, but that is a lot more useful than just having things snap at the end. So that's like good. Cool. That's good. I like that. Now, I kind of want to think about like, oh, like I need a vine here, and yes, I don't have art for it yet, but it'd be nice if I could give my artist sort of like, make this but better sort of thing. Same for here. So maybe it's a good idea to like sort of just make some scratch images that I can put there. Let's open the old MS Paint here. Let's see how big this thing is. So we need you know, we need some art that's like 3 tiles by 6 tiles. So 3 by 6. So tile size is doubled in the way the art is rendered. So we need 3 by 6, 48 by 96. So let's go ahead and do 48, 96. And let's make a little vine here. You know, this would be a nice little vine. Although, to be fair, it should also probably go a little bit higher. You know, like that. It should go like there, or something like that. So I just added 3 more tiles. So instead of 96, add 48 to that 144. So there we go. This is the vine that I gotta make. Let's do the old placeholder thing. And let's just like have a little, you know, thing here going on, you know, some vines, that sort of thing. I don't know, something like this. Oh no, don't resize. Yeah, not the best vine I've ever drawn, but that's totally okay. It gets the point across. That's all I want right now. Cool. So that's all good. Let's go ahead and save. Actually, Let's copy this. Let's open up GIMP. We will open up the, let's see, game, data, texture, objects underscore forest. Where's that at? There we go. Okay, so here we go. We have some objects underscore forest here. Absolutely wonderful. That is exactly what I wanted to happen. Just like that. Is that going to conflict? I think it actually might not. That's pretty awesome. What is this? 464? Yeah, you know what? I'll go ahead and say it's good. Let's fit that in there like this. Or you know what? This is going to have to become bigger anyways. Let's just do like 2024, 2024. Whoa. So that's good. Layer to image size. Get that size up there. Absolutely wonderful. Where are we going to want this file to be? 384 probably. That's a multiple of 16. That's good. And then let's get some color to alpha in here. Get rid of that nasty white. Where's the color to alpha? They changed the format of all the GIMP stuff and I'm upset. Let's see what we got. Can we just... What is this? Can I... How do I... What is a transparency threshold? Like, what? Whoa. Okay, can I just like... What? What is color to alpha? Like, I guess I'm just... There we go. I guess you can't do it if it's a selection or something. Anyways. That's all good there. Let's go ahead and add a new type of static object here. Whoa. Game, data, develop the static objects. Okay, and where's this source thing that I'm caring about? 0 and 3d4. 0, 3d4. What did I say the size was? 48 by 144. So we have this line here. Let's go and make sure that that file gets copied there. So that should be good. And then let's go into entities, add a new static object. Oh, yeah, see, this is a bug with this. That's not good. But either way, forest fine. So there we go. Got a little vine there. That's pretty good. Might actually be able to reuse it here. For now. Forest find one. Yeah, that's a bug too. You can't drag while the editor's open. That's definitely not good. Yeah, actually turns out to be pretty much exactly what we need there. So that's good. Just have a little vine here. Absolutely amazing. Alrighty. Did I just draw those lines in paint? Yeah, I did. The placeholder. There's like this weird shimmering effect on the outside. I wonder if that's... I don't know what the deal with that is, but either way. Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted an example for my artist to sort of follow. If I full screen, does the stream does capture that, that's good. So another thing that I sort of have to worry about is also like, I want, you know, the game has collectibles that sort of are important in ways, you know. I'll give you an example of these. So you come into this little cave here. You see there's this little floating page in the upper right hand corner of the game. You know, and the player, when they run into this, you know, it should be collected. Now, the maps in the Melodist are not particularly large. So I don't care about things like linear searches, right? Like, this is a tiny map. There are 4 notes, 1 page. 4 is like 0 to a computer. You know, it's like nothing. Like, you don't have to care about a linear search, or not even a linear search, not a linear search. Like, literally just processing every possible intersection, you know. Looks pretty nice, probably thanks to shaders. The vines. Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah, it has a lot to do with the lighting, I think. Like, the fact that the light comes through here looks pretty nice, I think. It's gonna look a lot better when I have real art. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a decent placeholder. Like, it gets the point across for sure. So yeah, anyways, that's all good. What was I just talking about? There's something I was gonna do that was really important. Oh yeah, collectibles, right? Let's go to the state game. We have probably update collectibles somewhere to make them float. Update collectible set, here we go. Yeah, we just update the float. Make it float. That's good. But we also want to check if the player's intersecting with it, right? So we care about the player bounding box. You know, I use this in enough spots that I just want to take it out. Like, update all map entities. Let's just do this. Let's actually have that available. The player bounding box. What else do I use that? Oh, I guess that's the only place where I use it, actually. But now I use it in multiple places, so that's actually going to be put to good use. Where are the collectibles? Collectible set. Here we go. And we'll just say, like, okay, we want to get the collectible bounding box. And let's see what a collectible has. Does it have a bounding box? It does have a bounding box. So we're going to go ahead and say collectibles, bounding box, and I. And we're going to say, okay, if the rectangles intersect, which rectangles? I, of course, am talking about the player rect and the collectible bounding box. What else would I be talking about? If these intersect, then we want this collection thing to happen. Right, now let's go and see what the generated entities file has in here for us. Do we have a remove function? We do, actually, for every single entity. We have a, we can just do collectible set remove. And we just got to pass in an index, which is pretty convenient because we have one available to us. And could we break? We probably could. Although a more intelligent thing to do here would just be like, okay, we're going to loop through this, but we're not going to increment at the end of the loop necessarily. If we remove, we will. So we're just going to say like, oh, you know, B32 collectible removed equals 0. And we're going to say collectible removed equals 1 if this is true. And then if collectible removed, then we can just remove it, and then we won't increment. Otherwise, let's increment. Player rect is not. There we go. Let's go and see what is going on here. Cave 1. Is Cave 1 this one? Yes, it is. So let's see if when we intersect with that thing, it should just go away. There we go. Disappears. Starting some particles. Like, that's a lame effect. Like, you don't just want it to disappear. You know, you need some particles there. In fact, we have a particle type called get for this exact purpose right here. Get. Let's use that. Yeah, like 100. No, not 100. Like 50 or something. I don't know. And then I guess we'll just see like, oh, particle state do particle. Yeah, that's what I want. We'll go and take this. The get particle type and particle death collision splash. No, we just want time to kill the particles off, and we'll want to do this probably where the collectible was. So instead of having a position here that's randomly generated, we will have randomly generated velocities. We'll just do like a simple little, like, you know, that thing, you know. And as for the position, you know, we could actually just you know, have a little bit of variance in what's generated here. We'll just do like 16 to 16, or negative 16 to 16. And we'll do this for both. Yeah, that's good. And then we'll just say, okay, we want to spawn this at the collectible bounding box .x plus collectible bounding box .width over 2 plus this randomized thing. We'll just do the same thing for y and height, and then we do this particle. Do we have a get particle type in the content data struct? We do not, so we're gonna have to get that. So particle type, get particle type, content data developer, particle type, content data, get particle type. We're gonna want to get this content data, get particle type, content data, get. Right, we care about that. So that's all good. And then I guess what I'll say is, you know, when we load the game, we want to request that particle type. Is this, hold on, what's going on here? Is this in it? Yeah, it is. Okay. Content data, request particle type. And we will just say on the core content data, and with core assets, let's request the get particle type. And then at the end, when we clean up, let's go and release that. What's going on here? 598. Oh yeah, we don't know what particles is. Particle state, maybe? What is going on here? 608. Oh. Yeah, that makes sense. This should be done in here. And the velocity should just be something like, I don't know. Something like that. There we go. So now we're going to collect this thing. Get some get particles. There are some bugs with the rendering, but the particles did spawn, so that's fine. Cool. Now the collectibles being collected don't really influence the game state at all. It just removes them from the map. So it looks like something's being collected, but nothing actually is. But you know, that's what we do here. Is lie to players, right? That's perfect game design. That is the exact solution that we want. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Cool. This is feeling pretty good. I'm pretty happy with how things are sort of kind of coming together. Maybe I should just try to fix this bug really quick, since that's something that I was sort of focusing on this stream. So I guess what I'll do, let's go to entities in the editor. And you know, when we're doing entity editor, the C32 type selection, you know, when we're doing this, I mean, this max page index is really what's killing us here. So this only needs to be, I think what we can do is just this. So 1 times mod, or actually, there's no function. You just call them mod, or you just use the mod operator. Anyways, we'll multiply 1 by the fact that this is not equal to 0, right? So if it is 0, this goes to 1. Oh, equals 0. Wait. If it is equal to 0, no, it should be not equal. There we go. So that actually solved it. That's perfect. So I'm pretty happy with how that has turned out. Let's go ahead and see the git status. We've modified a lot. My git repository, I only use it, so I don't care about doing like proper git practices. I'm just gonna say like, oh, did entity subtype selection thingy and whatnot. It's my personal repository. I don't care, really. Nobody else is programming the game besides me. So that's pretty good. That makes me pretty happy. Let's remove this like test thing, because that always like, I always have to explain that when I show people this, and that's annoying. So I'm probably gonna wrap up pretty soon, but it would be nice to sort of have this part of the map a little bit more filled out. This first part of the game is just really all about showing off the idea that, you know, when you run into these note things, they cause notes, and these notes are actually, you know, they reflect the world in some respect. So when these notes, you know, happen, then things in the world happen, and that's sort of the point of the first little area, is to show the player this, right? So let's go ahead and do a little thing here. So we could like show. I don't have any good ideas, which makes me think maybe I should hold off on this, because I'll have to think about what I want to be in this direction. But overall, I guess I'll run through the map a little bit. All right. That's kind of an annoying bug. The fact that these aren't drawn, like, to scale. Like, this collision information, when draw collision is on. Doesn't really matter that much, but it's kind of annoying. Yeah, you can see, like, the zooming that, like, just totally screws it up. Ugh. Alright. So, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. If there are any questions, please let me know, and I will do my best to answer them. So feel free to shoot any questions my way. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream. I guess I'll wait around if there are any questions. I don't know how many people showed up today, but... So I don't upload the whole Twitch VODs anywhere. Yeah, I do. You can see them if you go to my YouTube channel. Here, I can just do it actually. Open up the old Firefox. So if you go to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Delix, I don't know why speeds are looking pretty bad right now. But anyways, if you go here, you know, you can see sort of my YouTube channel. You can click on this little YouTube icon. It'll take you to another channel. And this is actually the stream archive. So you can see, you know, I have some things here. Again, I might make them unlisted, but I'm definitely going to post this one. This is like some really old stuff. But yeah, so you can come here and check those out. That being said, I don't think there are any other questions, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the stream. I hope you enjoyed this stream of development on the Melodist. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.